Hello, philosophy students, and by request, I am creating this video breaking down the Truman Show and epistemology, and we watch the Truman Show in place of a traditional exam to end our epistemology unit. And let me just tell you something, in the social science community, this is a favorite, big time favorite if you talk to social science types. But let me give you a little background because you weren't alive when the film came out. It came out in 1998 and it cost $60 million to make, but it earned $264 million. Obviously a commercial success, critical success. The film critics said good things about it. Seems like a fairly typical movie, but this movie came out right at the beginning of the internet becoming very popular and reality television becoming very popular. It hit just at the right time. So after it went through its normal cycle in the movie theater, it took on a life of its own in academic circles. And just to reveal my bias, and I hope I got across to you in epistemology, we all have our biases, so I will share with you mine. The Truman Show is my most all-time favorite movie. It's my favorite movie. I have had a framed movie poster hanging in my basement for years. Here's me pointing at it. You know, if I make a claim, I got to show you some evidence. There's the evidence. I don't know why I look so mean in the picture. There's no reason to. And I am a social scientist by occupation and hobby. If I'm not teaching social science, I'm reading about it on my own. So I think I fit that typical profile of Truman Show nerds, and social science types really have a strong affinity for it, and using it in my class is borderline cliche. I would guess if you take your prerequisite liberal arts in college, you very well may see it again in a psychology class or in a sociology class or whenever. It's going to happen. And again, to reiterate my point, why do social scientists love this movie? Because you can use it as a very effective tool in sociology, psychology, media studies, theology, and philosophy. I actually have a whole separate lesson when I used to teach sociology using the Truman Show. This one's totally different. And if you go online, there are all sorts of books, and you can buy lesson plans. It's all over the place. It's almost ubiquitous in social science circles. So anyway, my application of this film, my hope is that you see the epistemological lessons that we've learned prior, okay? And again, I gave this to you in lieu of the traditional test. Don't worry about a traditional test. This is it. Okay, so the first thing I asked you to look at were the 6 questions of Socrates. And some people were struggling with examples, so what I have here are some examples. Here are the 6 questions that Socrates asked. What is virtue? What is moderation? What is justice? What is courage? What is good? What is piety? So for example, here's some questions you could answer if you were having a hard time coming up with them. Was lying to protect Truman virtuous? Is our need for constant entertainment reflective of our true American virtues? Is constant product placement reflective of our consumerism? Moderation. Are we immoderate when it comes to our need for entertainment and consumerism? Has the culture gone too far in pushing the envelope of reality entertainment? What is justice? This debate between Christoph and Sylvia, one of the better scenes in the movie. If you watch that argument again, who had a stronger argument? Should Truman have been compensated for the deceit he lived with once he left? Would it be just to compensate him? What is courage? How did Truman demonstrate courage as the movie progressed? Was he courageous or was he foolish? You know, he gave up a pretty cushy gig. Why was that a courageous act to do? I don't know. What took him so long to overcome his fears? It took him a long time to get to that point. What is good? Was this whole endeavor a good undertaking, creating Sea Haven Island? Was that a good thing? Is Truman a good person? Were the actors involved, or were they all not good? Was this movie itself good? Why is it considered an important film and a critically acclaimed film and this sort of thing? And piety is where people were struggling the most. There's a ton of religious metaphors in the movie. Religious metaphors in the movie. What does this film show about what we are really reverent to? What do we really, quote unquote, worship in this country? Wisdom. We looked at wisdom in a prior class. So what examples from the film do we see Truman gaining wisdom? How does he act upon it once he has found this newfound wisdom? Was he even wise in the first place, or did he demonstrate a lack of wisdom? Was the creation of Sea Haven Island unwise in the first place? Here's a question you sometimes get. Was Christoph wiser than Truman, or the other way around? Again, not a right or wrong answer, but again, I want you to look at wisdom because philosophy literally means the love of wisdom. Okay, now the allegory of the cave is the most obvious parallel to philosophy in this film. You could argue this is a modern permutation of the allegory of the cave. So looking at the film, what was the cave? That's fairly obvious. But the ones that are less obvious, what were the chains? What was the fire? What were the shadows on the wall? What was the light? And here's a question. What could Truman share with the world once he left the cave? At the end of the film, when he exits the door, what could he share with the world? Okay, and I'm going to avoid the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. Okay, I'm sure you're going to get this in English class. I will spare you from it today. Okay, cognitive biases, not a ton of it in the film, but again, I wanted you to revisit these 20 cognitive biases. What cognitive biases did you see people having in the film? I wanted you to revisit this list of 20 and see some examples. Now, Truman overcame several of these on his path to enlightenment. In particular, the bandwagon effect, the zero risk bias, the ostrich effect, and some others. Okay, just wanted you to revisit these 20, and you can see as Truman becomes more enlightened, he loses his cognitive biases. And what you can take from that, you as a human being, as you lessen your faulty thinking and you lessen your faulty cognitive biases, you too will become a more enlightened individual. Now, we revisited the brain in the vat and NOZICK'S experience machine. Now, again, this whole exercise was based on exploring your presuppositions, because a lot of us have these things in our head that are automatically true without even questioning them. But Truman started to question his presuppositions. Why is that? Why is it this way? And then we saw the Enlightenment begin. So how did you see Truman question these to come to his own reality? Now, Sea Haven Island is obvious. It's an obvious parallel to the experience machine. Now, given the chance, would you gladly stay in Sea Haven Island? Beautiful weather. I mean, Truman had a nice car. He had a pretty wife. He had an easy job. He had a best friend. He had a pretty plum gig. I think a lot of people would hope for that kind of life. But he took the hard road. Was that the right thing to do? What would you do? Remember, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. And I think we see Truman starting to apply this as the film goes on. Now, the ship of Theseus, we related it in terms of personal identity. And people struggled with this, or like a boat. Who cares? You took pieces of a boat away, and then you made a boat out of the new one, but then you had another one. That's not the point. You know, the ship of Theseus is a thought exercise that you consider what is authentic, what is inauthentic, what is real, what is phony. Now, in the realm of personal identity, we use this analogy. We remove our old boards and replace them with the new ones to make the more real versions of ourselves. And in class, we looked at ourselves at 7 and at 14 and projected us at 21 and 28. So how did we see Truman removing these metaphorical boards and replacing them with more authentic boards? And that's the ship of Theseus. And the last one is the least amount, but I wanted us to revisit it at the end. Will technology get to a point where it will follow us all like Truman? Are we going to live in a world where we are constantly being monitored, where computers are going to operate without human intervention to monitor us, perform tasks? For example, could we live in a world something so simple that we consume our last drop of orange juice for breakfast, and automatically a robot will bring us more orange juice? That's a happy application, but then you think about, what if we get to a point where computers cross that line? And we've already looked at this. We didn't see a lot of it. Maybe what you can take from this is that, considering this movie was made in 1998, it couldn't even envision what we have now. You know, what it's going to be like in 10 years or 50 years in terms of AI. We very well may be living a Truman-like existence in the very near future. So food for thought. So the social scientist nerd rabbit hole, if you are so inclined, but you can go online and there's so many things. They interpret the names of the characters. Truman, Truman, his last name Burbank is where they make the Hollywood films. Christoph is the Christ figure. And then you ask, is God benevolent or vengeful? And we saw Christoph doing both. The several times that Truman assumes the prostrate Christ pose, and the name of his ship, Santa Maria, which was Columbus's ship. His wife's name was Meryl, and you may or may not know this, but Meryl Streep is considered probably the best actress of all time. And just go online and see. There is a lot. So anyway, I just hope you enjoyed my favorite film and you were able to apply some epistemological ideas to it. And we are done with epistemology and moving on to aesthetics. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to teaching you aesthetics.